Oklahoma and Texas A&M face off in one of the Final Four matchups to determine who makes it to the College World Series final. The two teams that were eliminated already from their bracket were Texas and Notre Dame. Texas being the first, scoring only 5 runs over the 2 games that they were there for. Similar to Stanford, just couldn't get it going offensively. Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic, was completely neutralized in the College World Series, going 1 for 8 and just not being able to really do anything and help that team out. And without that offensive prowess from him, the pitching really needed to step up, and they were just all right. They weren't great. Pete Hansen struggled, and Lucas Gordon, the other starter, both gave up at least 4 runs, and that just won't do if your offense isn't clicking and really firing on all cylinders. And the opposing starting pitching just completely outclassed Texas in the games that they played.
Yeah, I think going into Omaha, Texas was one of the more talented groups here, and I think at a lot of places was probably the favorite to come out on top. But I don't think it was super surprising to see them go 2-0 here. Heading into Omaha, I think Notre Dame and Texas A&M were just much hotter teams coming down the stretch. And so I think it was hard for Texas to keep up with that. Yeah, we didn't really see the typical offensive production we'd like from them, and also the bullpen once again was lacking, which had been a story throughout this year. And following the conclusion of their season, Texas did release their pitching coach, Sean Allen, which came as a big surprise. Last year, they led the country in ERA, and this year they had a 4.22 ERA, which is around 20th in the nation. So very interesting to see him get released. He hasn't historically always been a pitching coach, but he had a tough situation here and still led them to a very good pitching staff, although the bullpen was lacking. I'm sure he's going to be getting a lot of calls from head coaches around the country looking for an upgrade at the assistant coach spot, and maybe even potentially some head coach calls, but there aren't too many high-level vacancies left open anymore.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, the other team being eliminated. The team, once again, that beats the number 1 seed has yet to win the tournament, and this continues here. They looked good against Texas when Notre Dame was led by John Michael Bertrand and kind of outclassed their starting pitching there, but fell short against Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Really just a tale of kind of blunders against that Texas A&M team. Their final game, it should have been a lot closer than it was, with 1 inning just really running away from Notre Dame, and everything being like should have easily been a no-run inning, and then giving up a 3 spot is brutal, especially with that Notre Dame team that isn't the most offensively gifted. They have had their hot streaks, especially against Tennessee, but they're definitely not the best offense here in the College World Series, and to give up runs that easily is never a help if that's the case.
Yeah, like you mentioned, they had an impressive outing against Texas in that first game, but the rally bananas just weren't enough down the stretch against Oklahoma and Texas A&M. They just couldn't get enough going on the offensive end, and like you mentioned, those little mistakes, they're just even more glaring the further you get into this tournament. You just can't really have them, and they were happening both on the offensive and defensive side of things. The more they happen, especially down the stretch, it's just hard to overcome them, and we saw that here. They just weren't able to get past that against Texas A&M.
Yeah, and that's a Texas A&M team that has had their own woes defensively, but they were able to get past that with a very dynamic offense and pitching staff and make it to the final game in this bracket against Oklahoma. Like we mentioned, this Oklahoma team seems like they're like 1 year early to the College World Series. It's a very young team besides Graham, but they got the talent, and this is potentially a team that we could see next year as well. So they have a very good chance, especially not having lost a game in the College World Series, have the best chance to make it to the final. But Texas A&M is definitely a tough competition to get there.
Yeah, Oklahoma certainly looked incredible down the stretch. They are not losing games late in this year, and they just continue to stay on fire. Like you mentioned, a team a year early, so many young guys on that starting roster. I think they only have one senior in the starting lineup. And like you mentioned, Peyton Graham could be the only person leaving potentially in the position player group. So incredible for them to be doing that at such a young age when the story this season has been all these old groups with fifth year seniors coming back and a lot of transfers and stuff. So it just makes what they're doing even more impressive. And you have to think they have an edge here against Texas A&M, given they only have to win one game. And also, they've now just played 2 games in a 4-day stretch, I believe. So a lot of those arms are rested. They got the whole artillery available against Texas A&M these next 2 days. I feel like they have to at least be able to win one.
Yeah, and this A&M team is a veteran team, maybe not from all the same places, but they did so well in the transfer portal this past year, and we're a team that was projected to be not one of the better teams in the SEC, and they really showed everybody up and came up to play and made it to the College World Series. They're riding Nathan Detmer, who had a very iffy game against Oklahoma the first time round, but showed up this past game against Notre Dame, going 7 innings, not giving up a run. The game got close in the end against Notre Dame, but luckily able to get out of one jam, and from there it was smooth sailing. But yeah, this Texas A&M team is built differently than a lot of other teams here. But same with Oklahoma with being that young, and so many teams nowadays with the COVID year and all that stuff are a lot older and just have that experience. But Oklahoma and Texas A&M are just a bit built different, and yeah, it should be an amazing matchup. Right now, probably have to give Oklahoma the upper hand just because they have the easier route, only having to win one game to get to the final, with Texas A&M having to win 2. But they have their best closer or reliever available, with Polish not playing this the past day. He did have a long outing previously, but he's going to be ready to play one of these games if they need him.
Yeah, with Polish available, like you mentioned, I feel like they're going to have a quick hook on any starters or mid relievers this next game. They probably want to get him in there possibly in the 6th or 7th inning and see if he can lock down the rest of the game. Because once you're in these elimination games, you just got to trust your best arms and roll with them. And yeah, we'll see what they're able to do. Texas A&M's got an experienced group, and certainly wouldn't be surprised to see them take one here. But I am going to stick with Oklahoma.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe for more college baseball content.